There's a particular silence that follows heartbreak. It's not the silence of peace. It's the silence of absence. A quiet so thick you can hear the echo of what used to be. You wake up, and for a moment, you forget. The world is still. Then it rushes back. The memory, the name, the voice that's no longer there. The smell of their skin, the rhythm of your laughter. The plans that now float like ghosts in a room that feels too big. This is heartbreak. And for most of us, it feels like the end of love itself. Like love has died, taken with it the warmth, the safety, the belonging. But what if love doesn't end when the relationship does? What if heartbreak isn't the death of love, but its transformation? Love doesn't vanish, it changes form. Sometimes it becomes memory. Sometimes it becomes wisdom. Sometimes, if we let it, it becomes self-love. You see, heartbreak is not a failure. It's evidence. It tells us that we've loved, that we've risked, that we've opened ourselves to another human being. And in doing so, we've lived. Because to love is to gamble. And heartbreak is the price we pay for having played. When we fall in love, we often believe we are entering something eternal. We say things like forever, always, the one. Love gives us the illusion of permanence in a world that is constantly changing. But love itself, like everything else that is alive, evolves. It grows, it stretches, it breaks open. Sometimes it must shed its old skin to survive. And heartbreak, painful as it is part of that evolution. Let's think of it this way. When a relationship ends, love doesn't simply disappear. It rearranges itself. It may no longer live between two people, but it may live through them. It becomes the lessons we carry, the tenderness we develop, the boundaries we learn to set. It's the quiet knowledge that we can love again, differently, maybe even more deeply. The ancient Greeks had many words for love: eros, agape, philia, storge. We only have one. We say love to mean everything from passion to friendship, from attachment to care. But perhaps heartbreak shows us that love itself is not a single thing. It is a continuum, an ecosystem, capable of transforming from one state to another. The love that once desired may become the love that forgives. The love that once clung may become the love that releases. The love that once said, "I need you," may become the love that says, "Thank you." In that sense, heartbreak is not destruction. It is alchemy. It burns what no longer serves, so something truer can emerge. I once spoke with a woman who told me, "He left, and I thought I had nothing left. But after the grief, I realized I had myself." What she found wasn't closure. It was transformation. The love that she had poured outward, she began to pour inward. You see, heartbreak is not an ending. It's an initiation. It initiates us into the deeper work of love, the kind that has less to do with romance and more to do with truth. Because when love ends, what's left is everything it uncovered in us: our longing, our fear, our need for connection, our capacity to give, and our courage to lose. Heartbreak is the mirror that shows us not just who the other was, but who we are. We often say, "I gave them my heart." But perhaps the truth is, they didn't take it. They revealed it. They revealed the part of us capable of tenderness, of care, of joy, of ache. That part doesn't die with them. It remains, waiting to be expressed again. Maybe not in the same way, but with the same depth. To love is to be changed, and to lose love is to be changed again. So when we grieve, we are not just grieving the person. We are grieving the version of ourselves that existed in their presence. The one who laughed that way, touched that way, dreamed that way. And so, heartbreak becomes not only about missing the other, but about missing ourselves in love. And that is why heartbreak feels so existential. Because we don't just lose someone, we lose a world. But here's the quiet miracle. From that loss, a new world begins to grow. In the ashes of heartbreak, the heart begins to regenerate. Slowly, imperceptibly. Like a forest after fire, the ground looks barren for a while, but underneath, roots are working. Healing is happening in secret. You may not see it yet. You may not even believe it's possible. But heartbreak is not the end of love. It is love teaching you to live without its familiar form, so that one day when love knocks again, you can open the door with both hands free. Because love, when it returns, will not look like before. It will be quieter, wiser, less about possession, more about presence, less about needing, more about knowing. So yes, heartbreak hurts. It unravels us. It breaks the illusion of control. But in doing so, it frees us. It reminds us that love is not a contract. It's an experience, not a destination, a journey. And heartbreak is one of its most sacred rites of passage. It's strange, isn't it, that the very thing that breaks our heart also expands it. When love ends, the world feels smaller. But over time, when you start to breathe again, when you laugh unexpectedly, when you notice beauty and realize it still moves you, the world widens. Love begins to take new shapes. It flows into your friendships, your work, your art, your solitude. It becomes the way you see the world, not through loss, but through tenderness. That's when you know love hasn't ended. It has simply changed address. So, heartbreak, painful, brutal, disorienting as it is, might be love's most honest teacher. Because it strips away fantasy. It leaves us face to face with the truth. Love is not possession. Love is not permanence. Love is participation. And even when the relationship ends, your participation in love continues. In the way you remember, in the way you forgive, in the way you choose to love again, even after being broken. Maybe heartbreak doesn't close love's story. Maybe it begins a new chapter, one written not with two hands intertwined, but with one hand learning how to hold itself. When I speak of heartbreak as transformation, I don't mean it in the romantic way that pain always becomes wisdom, or that we should be grateful for suffering. No, heartbreak is not beautiful when you are in it. It is raw, it is animal. It is the moment you realize that your sense of safety, of belonging, has been ripped from beneath you. It feels as though the floor has disappeared, and you are falling, not through space, but through yourself. Because heartbreak is not just an event, it's a collapse of meaning. Everything that once made sense now feels strange. The rituals you shared, your morning coffee, the familiar goodnight, the inside jokes, they all become ghosts, haunting the corners of your day. And so you find yourself asking, who am I without this love? That question is the beginning of transformation. Because in the unraveling of we, you are invited back to I. Not the I that existed before love, but the one that has been changed by it. And that is the paradox of heartbreak. It takes something from you, but it also gives something, a clearer, truer relationship with yourself. In love, we expand. We merge, we open, we build bridges between worlds. In heartbreak, those bridges burn, and we are forced to rebuild on our own ground. And this, though painful, is sacred work. When we fall in love, we are often meeting a part of ourselves through another. We fall for the reflection of our own possibility, the person we become in the presence of someone who sees us. When that mirror disappears, we are left with a question. Can I still see myself? That's the work of transformation, to internalize the love that once came from outside, to become both the lover and the beloved. Think of heartbreak like the breaking of a shell. Inside that rupture is something alive, something not yet formed. Grief becomes the incubator for that new life, but we resist it. We want to skip the in-between, the uncertainty, the loneliness, the empty bed. We want to go from heartbreak to healing, from ending to new beginning, without staying in the tender middle. Yet it is in that middle, that space between what was and what will be, where transformation actually happens. Because heartbreak is a teacher that doesn't use words. It teaches through absence, through silence, through the moments you think you cannot bear. It asks, can you stay with your longing without trying to fill it? Can you let go of what was without needing to vilify it? Can you find compassion for yourself in the midst of loss? The answers do not come easily. But every time you sit with your pain instead of escaping it, something inside begins to trust you again. Your heart, wounded as it is, learns that you can hold yourself, that love doesn't only exist when someone else is holding you. That's what heartbreak transforms, dependency into depth. Because the end of a relationship does not mean the end of connection. The love you shared does not vanish. It becomes internalized. You begin to carry their presence differently, not as an ache, but as an influence. Maybe they taught you how to laugh louder. Maybe they showed you your capacity for intimacy. Maybe they broke you open in ways that now allow you to love the world more gently. Love leaves traces. It leaves echoes. And those echoes become part of the architecture of who you are. One day, long after the tears have dried, you might find yourself giving advice to a friend, or writing a line in your journal, or smiling at a stranger. And realize, without meaning to, that you are passing forward something you learned from that love. That is transformation. That is how love continues. Because every person we love becomes a part of the mosaic of our emotional life. We are all composites of our past loves, each one leaving us a little wiser, a little softer, sometimes a little more guarded, but always more aware of what we truly need. The danger is when heartbreak turns to bitterness, when we freeze our pain into protection. Because in that frozen state, we stop loving altogether. We become safe but numb. And that, perhaps, is the only real death of love, when we stop letting it move through us. So, the task of transformation is not to close your heart, but to let it heal open. Not to erase the past, but to weave it into your becoming. The heart, after all, is resilient. It knows how to break. And it knows how to mend. But it never mends the same way twice. Each heartbreak alters its shape. It becomes wider, more complex, more capable of holding contradictions. It learns that love can be both joy and sorrow, connection and loss, holding and letting go. To live with an open heart is to accept this duality, that love and loss are not opposites, but companions, that every hello carries within it the seed of a goodbye, and every ending, no matter how painful, contains the potential for new beginnings. I often think of heartbreak as the pruning of a tree. The branches cut away are not punishment. They make room for new growth. But that new growth doesn't happen immediately. There is a season of stillness, of emptiness. That season is necessary. It's the time when the roots deepen. So if you find yourself in that season now, if your heart feels barren, if your life feels colorless, know that the roots are working. You may not see it, but your heart is preparing for the next spring. Because love, by its very nature, is regenerative. It wants to keep growing, even through pain. And heartbreak, as devastating as it feels, is not the interruption of that process. It's part of it. What if, instead of asking, "Why did this end?" we asked, "What is this becoming?" What if we saw heartbreak not as a wound to close, but as a doorway to open? Because on the other side of heartbreak, something extraordinary waits. Not just another love, but a deeper capacity to love. A love that doesn't seek to complete you, but to accompany you. A love that doesn't demand forever, but values presence. That is love transformed. That is heartbreak becoming wisdom. There is a moment, after the storm, after the tears, after the endless reruns of what if, when the silence begins to feel different. Not empty, but open. It's subtle. One morning you wake and realize you didn't think of them first. You notice the light filtering through your window, and for a second, you simply feel the warmth of it, not the absence of someone to share it with. It's quiet, but it's a different kind of quiet, the quiet of possibility. This is the space where love begins to take its new shape. Because love doesn't die with heartbreak. It reorganizes. It spreads. It flows into new channels. It finds new expressions. Maybe it turns inward, into care, into reflection, into creativity. Maybe it extends outward, into compassion for others, for the world, for strangers who, like you, are carrying their invisible griefs. When we are heartbroken, we often believe that our capacity to love has been shattered. But what if heartbreak is actually an expansion of that capacity? What if the very breaking open of your heart allows it to hold more love than before, not less? It's like the Japanese art of kintsugi, where broken pottery is repaired with veins of gold. The cracks are not hidden, they are illuminated. They become part of the story, the places where the light gets in. Heartbreak does that to us. It breaks us in ways that make us more beautiful, more human. It gives us empathy, a sensitivity to the fragility of others. It gives us humility, the awareness that we are all vulnerable to loss. And it gives us depth, the understanding that love is not only joy, but courage. Because to love again after heartbreak is not naive, it's brave. It means you have faced the fire and decided that warmth is still worth it. But let's not rush there. Because transformation is not about replacing pain with positivity. It's about integration. You cannot rush the transformation of heartbreak any more than you can rush the seasons. There is an organic pace to grief. It unfolds in layers: shock, anger, sorrow, reflection, forgiveness. And each stage has its own wisdom, its own offering. The shock reminds you of how deeply you can feel. The anger reveals your boundaries, your unmet needs. The sorrow shows your capacity to love beyond pride. The reflection teaches you about your patterns, your fears, your hopes. And forgiveness. Forgiveness frees you. Not forgiveness as an absolution of the other. Forgiveness as a liberation of yourself. Because holding on to resentment keeps you tied to the story. It keeps you in orbit around what has already passed. Forgiveness breaks that gravity. It lets you step out of the past and return to your own center. You don't forgive because they deserve it. You forgive because you do. Because you deserve the peace that comes when the story no longer owns you. And in that peace, something remarkable happens. You begin to see the love differently. You begin to see that maybe it was never meant to last forever, but that doesn't make it less real. The length of love is not its measure. Its measure is in the moments it gave you, the parts of yourself it awakened, the ways it shaped your understanding of connection. Some loves are meant to last a lifetime. Others are meant to last a season. And both can be sacred. We often equate permanence with success, but permanence is not the same as fulfillment. A love can end and still be complete. A relationship can break and still have been beautiful. It's like a song. It doesn't last forever, but it doesn't need to. You don't mourn a song when it ends. You carry it with you. It lingers, reshaping the silence that follows. That's what heartbreak transforms. The silence after love into the resonance of it. You no longer hear their voice, but you hear what it awakened in you. That's how love continues, as resonance. And perhaps that's what transformation truly is. When love no longer binds you, but guides you. When the pain stops being something to escape and becomes something to learn from. You start to ask different questions. Instead of, why did they leave? You ask, what did this love reveal in me? Instead of, what was missing? You ask, what was I searching for? And sometimes the answer is not about them at all. It's about you. Heartbreak often points us toward the parts of ourselves that are still unloved. The parts we outsource to others, hoping they will complete what we haven't yet accepted. We think we're mourning the other person, but often we're mourning the version of ourselves we only allowed to exist in their presence. So heartbreak invites us, painfully but powerfully, to reclaim that version. To learn to give ourselves the love we once sought externally. This is the heart's evolution, from dependency to wholeness, from longing to belonging. You begin to see that love is not something you lose, it's something you become. And when you begin to love yourself in the aftermath of heartbreak, it's not in a self-help cliché kind of way. It's quiet. It's the way you start talking to yourself when you make a mistake. It's the way you no longer beg for validation from people who don't see you. It's the way you protect your peace like a sacred thing. Self-love is not loud. It's steady. It's the love that teaches you, I can be my own home. And when that happens, when you find home within yourself, the next time love comes, it feels different. You no longer enter it out of need, but out of fullness. You no longer grasp for certainty, you welcome mystery. You no longer demand forever, you appreciate presence. That's what heartbreak can teach, if you allow it. It teaches you to love in freedom, not fear. To love in truth, not illusion. To love with eyes open, heart open, hands open. Love after heartbreak is like the sunrise after a long night. It doesn't erase the darkness. It makes sense of it. It shows you that what felt like an ending was actually a preparation for light. So when your heart breaks, let it. Let it break you open. Let it rearrange you. Let it make you more honest, more kind, more alive. Because heartbreak is not the end of love. It's the beginning of its transformation, from what you shared with someone else, into the love you now live within yourself. And from that place, love begins again. Not as a repetition, but as a renewal. Because love, like life itself, always wants to continue. When I say heartbreak is transformation, I mean that it reshapes your relationship with love itself. It takes love out of the realm of fantasy and brings it back to the soil of reality. Raw, unpredictable, alive. It teaches you that love is not something you control, it's something you participate in. And participation means risk. Every time you love, you risk loss. Every time you open your heart, you invite change. And yet, despite everything, we return to love, again and again. Why? Because love, even with all its uncertainty, is what gives life its depth. We are not here to avoid pain. We are here to feel it, to grow from it, to be transformed by it. The paradox of love is this: the same force that can break us open is the one that keeps us alive. And heartbreak, though it feels like the opposite of love, is actually love's continuation, its shadow, its teacher, its mirror. When you are in heartbreak, you are still in relationship, not with the person, but with the memory, with the meaning, with yourself. You are still in conversation with love. Because love doesn't disappear, it moves. It shifts from dialogue to reflection, from presence to remembrance. And if you listen closely, heartbreak speaks. It whispers, "This too is love, just in another language." You see, we often think of love as something that must be mutual to be real. But heartbreak shows us that love exists even when it's not returned. That your capacity to love, to feel, to care, to hope, is yours. It doesn't depend on someone else's staying. It's the flame that burns within you, not the one they lit. They may have sparked it, yes, but it is you who keeps it alive. When you realize that, love stops being something fragile and becomes something infinite. And this is where heartbreak begins to evolve into wisdom. When you see that the purpose of love was never to possess, but to experience. To know yourself through the act of loving. To be changed by the act of giving. Love, in its essence, is not about forever. It's about fullness. Did you love fully? Did you allow yourself to be seen, to be moved, to be touched by another's existence? If yes, then the love was real, even if it ended. Because the end of a relationship does not erase its meaning. Just as the last page of a book doesn't make the story disappear. We are so afraid of endings, we often mistake them for failures. But what if endings are not evidence that love didn't work, but proof that it did? That it completed its purpose? And now it's time for both souls to continue evolving. Sometimes love's purpose is not to last forever, but to awaken something in you that will. A deeper understanding of yourself. A gentler view of others. A clearer sense of what you truly desire. That is the transformation. When you look back and say, "Yes, it ended, but I am more whole because it happened." You may not feel that way at first. In the beginning, heartbreak feels like destruction. But with time, it reveals itself as construction, the building of a new inner landscape. It's like an artist who uses the ashes of an old painting to create a new one. The colors are darker, richer, wiser. Your heart becomes that canvas. And when you start to see your heartbreak as part of the larger story of your becoming, it loses its cruelty. It becomes something almost sacred. Because heartbreak, in truth, is the most honest encounter you will ever have with love. It is love stripped of illusion, love without the comfort of reciprocity, without the safety of future, without the mask of perfection. What remains is pure, love in its raw, unprotected form. It's the love that says, even though it ended, I still wish you well. It's the love that says, you hurt me, but I still hope you heal. It's the love that says, I lost you, but I found myself. This love is quiet, mature. It doesn't need to prove itself. It simply is. That is the transformation, from attachment to compassion, from longing to presence. When love transforms through heartbreak, it teaches us to love with open hands. Not clinging, not controlling, but holding, gently. It's the difference between owning a bird and watching it fly. Because to truly love is to allow others to be free, even if that freedom takes them away from you. That's the kind of love that doesn't end when the relationship ends. That's the kind of love that transforms into understanding, into forgiveness, into peace. And from that peace, new love grows. Not as a replacement, but as a continuation, another expression of the same infinite source. So when your heart breaks, don't ask, when will I stop loving? Ask instead, how is my love changing? Because the love that once flowed toward another can now flow through you, into your friendships, your purpose, your art, your silence. When heartbreak transforms, love becomes a practice, not a partnership. A way of being, a lens through which you see the world. You begin to notice beauty again, not because you've forgotten, but because you've healed enough to see. You find that love was never confined to that one person. It lives everywhere, in music, in laughter, in a stranger's kindness. You start to recognize love as a field that you are always connected to. Not something you lost, but something you're learning to relate to differently. Heartbreak humbles us into awareness. It strips away our illusions about control and permanence. But it also initiates us into the deeper, quieter truth. That love is an energy, not an event. You can't lose it. You can only evolve with it. So yes, heartbreak is painful. It's messy. It's disorienting. But it's also sacred. It's the alchemy through which love changes state, from one form to another, from us to I, from what was to what is becoming. And if you let it, if you stop fighting the loss and start listening to its wisdom, it will return you to yourself. A self that knows how to love more freely, forgive more easily, and live more fully. Because heartbreak is not the end of love. It is love learning to take a new shape, one that no longer depends on holding, but on understanding. And that, in the end, is the quiet revolution of the heart. When the heart has been broken, it becomes an instrument that plays a deeper tune. The same notes, perhaps, but softer, with more air, more meaning between them. We emerge from heartbreak changed, not cleaner, not simpler, but layered. There's a wisdom that comes from having loved and lost, from having dared to open, despite knowing that love is never a guarantee. And yet, in that openness, there's a kind of defiance. It's as if the heart, after being torn apart, whispers, I will still love again. That whisper is the most courageous act of all. Because heartbreak is not just about what was lost. It's about what remains. It's about the part of you that, even after the ending, refuses to close. The part that believes that connection, intimacy, vulnerability, they are still worth it. But this time, love will look different. You will no longer confuse attachment for devotion. You will no longer mistake passion for promise. You will no longer think that love must mean losing yourself. Because heartbreak has refined you. It has made you more discerning, not cynical, but awake. You now understand that love is not about merging, but meeting. Two whole beings coming together, not to complete each other, but to accompany one another. The next time love arrives, it will not demand that you disappear. It will invite you to be seen. That is what heartbreak transforms. The way you show up in love. Before, you might have loved from fear. Fear of being alone, fear of not being enough, fear of losing what you have. Now you love from awareness, from choice, from self-respect. You understand that love is not the elimination of boundaries, but their honoring. That love is not about sameness, but about space, the distance that allows desire to breathe. This is the maturity heartbreak brings, the recognition that love and freedom can coexist, that you can be deeply connected without being consumed. Because heartbreak, when faced honestly, frees you from illusion, especially the illusion that love will save you. Love is not salvation. Love is revelation. It reveals who you are, what you value, what you fear, what you long for. It reflects the state of your relationship, not just with another, but with yourself. And that's why heartbreak, though painful, can be sacred, because it brings you face to face with your own soul. When we love, we often project onto another person our fantasies of safety, of belonging, of worth. We think we're falling in love with them, but we are also falling in love with the version of ourselves we get to be in their presence. So when they leave, it's not just them we lose. It's that version of us. That's why the grief runs so deep. But here's the miracle. That version of you still exists. It was never theirs to keep. It was always yours to reclaim. And so, heartbreak becomes the process of reclaiming your own heart, piece by piece, memory by memory, moment by moment. You begin to see that what you thought they gave you, confidence, joy, tenderness, was always within you. They just helped you remember it. And now the remembering is yours to continue. You become the keeper of your own aliveness. There's a quiet power in that. It's not the power of control, but of surrender. The power to trust that even after loss, life still wants you to live fully. Because heartbreak, as devastating as it feels, is life reminding you that you can feel. It's the heart stretching its muscles, rediscovering its strength. Love broke you open, yes, but it also made you capable of depths you didn't know existed. So what do you do with that capacity? You let it guide you toward love that's more conscious, more balanced, more real. You begin to choose love not for escape, but for expansion. You stop seeking someone to fill your emptiness and start seeking someone to share your fullness. This is the evolution of love. The love before heartbreak is often driven by longing, the search for completion. The love after heartbreak is driven by awareness, the celebration of connection. Before heartbreak, you love with hope. After heartbreak, you love with wisdom. And wisdom doesn't make you harder. It makes you softer in the right places and stronger in the ones that need it. It teaches you that love can be both fierce and gentle, that it can hold difference, endure conflict, and still remain alive. Because love, as it matures, becomes less about passion and more about presence. It becomes less about what you can take from each other and more about what you can create together. And when you arrive there, when you can love freely without clutching, without fear, you realize that heartbreak didn't destroy your capacity for love. It refined it. It stripped it of its illusions. It left only what was essential: truth, tenderness, gratitude. It's like a sculptor chipping away everything that is not the statue. Heartbreak removes everything that is not real love. So yes, heartbreak hurts, but it also clarifies. It teaches you to differentiate between fantasy and feeling, between possession and partnership, between being loved and being seen. And that clarity is love's transformation, from something we chase to something we embody. When heartbreak completes its work, you begin to see that love is not something that happens to you. It's something you practice every day, in the way you speak, in the way you listen, in the way you forgive. Love stops being a noun and becomes a verb. And as you practice it, with yourself, with others, with life, you realize that every ending was just another doorway into beginning again. The heart, when healed, does not close. It reopens differently. You carry the memories, yes, but they no longer weigh you down. They become part of your tapestry. Threads of gold woven through your story, shimmering reminders that you have lived, that you have loved, that you have lost. And still, you are here. Still open, still alive, still capable of love. And this is the transformation I speak of. The one that takes you from heartbreak to wholeness, from grief to gratitude, from ending to evolution. Because love doesn't disappear, it evolves. And the heartbreak you thought would destroy you? It was simply love changing shape, asking to be experienced in a new way. Perhaps that is the most human truth of all, that to love is to be transformed again and again, and that even as we lose, we are being remade.